Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell here, and today is the day that the Liberal government's mini budget will be revealed. This is one of only 2 times throughout the year that we find out what the government is planning on doing with all of their, or should I say our money, taxpayer money, over the next 6 months before we get the next update that is in April. Now, if you're watching this just as the video is posted, it's likely that I'm live already right now watching this very announcement as it's happening, so you can check out the link in the description. You can join me there to watch this as it happens. But in this video, I want to go over some of the predictions for what's going to be inside of this mini budget fall economic update, some of the expectations of other politicians, as well as what I personally think will be inside of it, what I'd like to see inside of it, and what I think probably won't be there. First, let's go over what some of the opposition parties are asking to be inside of this budget, both the Conservatives and the NDP, and we'll touch on one thing mentioned by the Bloc as well.
Prime Minister's $500 billion of inflationary deficits have given us a 40-year high in inflation. Now they're driving up interest rates. Inflationary taxes, including the Prime Minister and NDP plan to triple the carbon tax, threaten to force Canadians to turn off the heat during winter. Tomorrow is the fall economic update. Will the government commit today to freezing spending and freezing taxes?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, through the difficult times of the pandemic and now as families are faced with rising prices on so many different things, we have been there to support them. We're delivering, as of Friday, the checks are going to start rolling out to 11 million households for a doubling of the GST rebate that's going to help people in meaningful ways. We're also moving forward on rental supports and dental supports for children across the country. Unfortunately, the Conservatives, despite their supposed preoccupation with the cost of living on Canadians, are opposing our support for families who need dental care for their kids or support for low-income renters.
Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party is asking Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, the one who's going to be delivering this update, this mini budget, saying, hey, we need to pause all new tax increases that are planned. This is what they want to see inside of the mini budget. Now, I think it's rather unlikely that the Liberals will commit to this because they are already talking about increasing certain aspects of the carbon tax, as well as CPP premiums and EI premiums are set to go up on their regular schedule, and it seems like they're going to be moving forward with these plans regardless of if the Conservatives don't like it. But one of the other main concerns of the Conservatives is that the Liberals stop their inflationary spending. This is what the Conservatives say, that the Liberals' spending has been inflationary, and there is some argument to that. Since the beginning of the pandemic, there's been quite a lot of spending by the federal government, and whether or not that has worked its way into inflation is something that different people have different opinions on. And this is something that I think that the Conservatives will actually get from the Liberals in this mini budget, is a stop to additional spending, or at least a dramatic reduction of any new spending. I think we're going to see the Liberals take into account the spending that they're doing with the GST doubling that we're going to see as of Friday, doubling of that GST tax credit that people will be getting either in check form or direct deposit. I think we're going to see them sort of counter or putting inside of their budget the additional spending for the dental plan and the housing benefit, things that they've been trying to push through the House of Commons and through the Senate and to receive royal assent over the past number of weeks. We're going to see that, but I don't think we're going to see a lot more additional spending because they've received warning from the IMF saying, hey, Canada, you got to be careful not to counteract what the Bank of Canada is doing right now, raising interest rates to decrease demand in the economy. You don't want to give out any more money to increase demand because that's going to make inflation worse for the long run.
Mr. Speaker, a recent report shows that in the last year, Loblaws made their biggest profits ever, to the tune of an extra $1 million in profit for every day of the year. So while families are turning to food banks or skipping meals to reduce their costs, Galen Weston and his shareholders are lining their pockets. The NEPs called on the government to make these chains pay what they owe to Canadians so we can do things to help, like remove the GST on home heating. So are the Liberals finally going to get going on this and tackle greedflation, which is making the rich richer while everyone else pays the price?
So Daniel Blaikie, an NDP member of Parliament, is saying, hey, we need to really focus on this greedflation thing, something that the NDP have really been pushing over the past number of weeks, saying that certain big box grocery stores in Canada have been price gouging, or at the very least they want more penalties for price gouging, so that when they find out if they've been price gouging or not, they'd be able to sort of bring in more money. And also they want to increase taxes. They want to increase increase a windfall tax on these big corporations so that when they're making excess profits, more money will go to the government so that they can operate different social programs. This is the NDP way, this is the NDP vision, and this is what they're asking of the Liberal government. Now, there was a little bit of a leak that there's going to be something like this inside of the mini budget. We're going to find out and see. Again, if you're watching this, I'm probably live right now. If you're watching it pretty close to when it comes out, so you can join us there. But it seems like the Liberal government is going to do something that is called a 1% tax, or I guess we think that it's going to be 1% tax on share buybacks for big corporations. This isn't specifically just for grocery stores. This is for any corporation that can do share buybacks. A quick little explainer of share buybacks, if you haven't heard about that before. You know how companies, they can sell shares, and that represents a percentage of the company. Share buybacks are just what happens when a company is doing pretty well. They have extra cash on hand. They will buy shares back from the market so that there's less shares in circulation, essentially making everyone's shares that are currently out there more valuable, right? They'll take money that they've made and they'll buy their own shares and then not have that be circulating in the market. Essentially, it's something that's good for shareholders, right? Reduces the supply of those shares. Now, it seems like the government recognizes that, hey, this only happens when companies are doing relatively well, so we are going to tax them 1% on those share buybacks when they do them. The other thing that this could do is to incentivize companies to invest more in hiring more people or expanding their businesses within Canada instead of just rewarding shareholders. So the reason that I think this is going to be inside of the budget is because it was inside of the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, and it seems like the Liberals are going to take some inspiration from this.
It seems like Justin Trudeau and the Liberals don't have the courage to tackle greedflation, to do anything about the cost of living that's going up, the fact that people are having a hard time paying their bills, and that is being driven up by corporate greed. And we've got proof that other countries are doing something about it. Windfall tax, or a tax on the excess profit of the oil and gas sector, is something that the European Union is doing, the United Kingdom is doing, Spain is doing. So Canada should be doing it as well. And it's really more evidence that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals don't get what people are going through. On top of that, for the cold winter that's coming, other countries have put in place help to families that are going to be struggling. We're not seeing anything so far in the fall economic statement that's going to help Canadians get through this tough winter.
So Singh is expanding on some of these points here, saying that it looks like Trudeau and the Liberal government just don't have the guts to take down these big corporations and to actually tax them on these windfall profits that Singh seems to think that they're receiving right now. Some people would argue against this, saying that it's not very good to, in a period of recession, go hard on corporations because you kind of want your corporations to be more productive, hire more people, increase the GDP, put us into a better economic situation. That's what some people would sort of have as a counter argument, but it seems like Singh here is really pushing on this increased windfall tax. He also mentions that it doesn't seem like they're going to be giving any help to Canadians as we head into a potentially tough winter. This could be a hint that maybe he's seen the economic statement, the mini budget, and that there's not going to be any direct to Canadian incentives or dollar payments. I know Daniel Blakey talked there about the removing GST on heating, so that could be a potential thing that we could see in here, but it seems like the NDP aren't too happy about this. It remains to be seen, though, and if the NDP are going to sort of remove their support from the Liberals if they don't see what they want to see in this economic update. You might already know that they have a long-standing agreement with the Liberals to vote in favor of all of the bills that they put forward in the government to make sure that there's not an election called, so long as they provide a certain number of things, one of which was that dental care benefit that we saw put into place just recently through Bill C-31, I believe it was.
6 out of 10 workers will be left behind. 6 out of 10, Mr. Speaker. We've been through this already during the pandemic. The CERB had to be created because the government realized it couldn't just look the other way when 60% of workers lost their jobs. If there is a recession, we could end up in the exact same situation, and that would be embarrassing because you could see it coming this time. Will EI reform be added to the economic update?
And this is the criticism of the Bloc Québécois. What they want to see inside of this budget is EI reform, employment insurance reform. Carla Qualtrough, the Minister for Employment Insurance here in Canada, well, she's been tasked with updating and totally revamping this EI program, but we haven't seen any updates. She says that she's been working on it in the background, consulting with stakeholders, and has been getting a large EI reform put together, but whether or not it's going to be in this budget remains to be seen. She responded to this question saying, "I'm looking forward to revealing this to you," but didn't give us any kind of date or any indication that it would be inside of this mini budget. So I'm thinking it likely won't be. The other reason that it's probably not going to be coming in this mini budget is because of how much the Liberals are talking about. We need to cut spending. We can't have inflationary spending. We can't have to limit this. We have to be fiscally prudent, and adding a new EI program that could see more money being spent or more money dedicated to Canada's social safety net, well, that's not, some might argue it's not entirely fiscally prudent, right? At a time like this, where the economy is certainly looking like it is in shambles. So that's what the Bloc want to see, but I think that they're not going to be too happy when we actually see this budget. But what do I think will actually be inside of this budget? Well, we've talked about some of them. The share buyback tax, I think we're definitely going to see that, as well as the Liberal government's increased emphasis on the green transition, right? Probably there's going to be, if there is any new spending, it's going to be incentives for businesses that are green in the Liberals' eyes, transitioning from less green businesses to more green businesses. This is the economic future that the Liberals are always talking about. The other thing that I think is going to be in there, on top of the green stuff, I think more battery production for electric vehicles as part of that sort of green transition. But the other thing that I think is going to be inside of this budget that might be surprising is that they're going to say, hey, Canada's actually in a pretty good economic spot relative to what some other people might think and relative to some other countries. Now, the government revenue, that certainly has gone up over the past while with inflation, with people paying more for things. Of course, people are paying more tax on things, goods and services. That's why they kind of did this rebate. But I think that the government is doing better than we might think because people are paying more, because prices are higher, along with one of Canada's largest industries, the oil industry, obviously doing very well because of external pressures that have raised the price of oil, right? The Canadian government, again, taxes that, and it will actually show on our GDP that things are a little bit better than they would have been because of these inflated oil prices. So there are some of my predictions. Of course, we're going to have to find out what's happening live on the channel. If you want to join me, there's a link in the description. We're going to be watching the whole entire mini budget reveal. So join me there if you're watching this video in the next sort of hour since this is released. But with all that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.